Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, CesarRespino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, CesarRespino, and you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com. And if you haven't subscribed to my podcast, make sure you do so. And so today I have a special guest. Her name is Kenya Brooks Jones. Hey, Kenya, how are you?
Hi, Cesar.
Awesome. So let me give you a little bit of her background. Kenya is the president and CIO of Jones Software Corporation, launched in 2015. Kenya leverages her expertise in education software technology, IBM, enterprise design thinking certification, Cisco certification, AT&T data credentials, medical technology, AstraZeneca pharmaceutical sales, and television media. Kenya's executive leadership experience consists of building partnerships among key stakeholders in education, business, and government, including the United Kingdom, Belgium, South Africa, DR, and Brazil. Wow, that is amazing. This is a lot of great stuff. So I can see you have a lot of great background and certifications in technology and, that kind of stuff, right? So right. I know that that's not where it started. So I want to know about Kenya. Where are you from? Tell me a little bit about your upbringing as a kid.
Oh, well, my story is pretty remarkable. So it really starts in the 1700s. Like, I have traced my roots to my Native American land in Martinsville, Georgia. It was established in 1820. My great-grandfather was a native that stayed during the Trail of Tears. So that's a part of my history I'm really excited about sharing. And as I find my family history, because my grandmother was born on that land, my great-grandmother was born on that land, and my great-great-grandmother was born on that land. And there was a time period where in the South, you could not mix races. And because of that, my great-great-grandmother and great-grandfather's relationship, it led to family calamity, which took them during that period to the Florida area. And St. Petersburg, Florida was their new home that they found. I found in the 1930s census when they started to migrate in that area. And my great-great-grandmother, always not too prideful, but her and Al Capone was in the same neighborhood together.
Oh, wow. Nice. Wow.
Yeah. So that was really most of our origins. And my grandmother was an amazing baritone saxophone player. So during this time, my great-grandmother had what they called Aunt Hattie's Kitchen in that area. And so she was the caterer and houser during the Green Book period that allowed, baseball players, Pullman Porters, Langston Hughes, anyone of color pretty much came through Aunt Hattie's Kitchen during that time. And at the time, my grandmother was graduated from high school. She was at the top of her class, and she was awarded a full scholarship to FAMU University. And she declined because she felt like, I don't want to raise another generation of kids having to go through back doors or sit at different counters. So she married an amazing airman in the Air Force, my grandfather. And they started their life in Spain with my mother, my aunt, and my uncle wasn't born during this time. So they lived in Spain for a very long time. And they came back to the States. My grandmother found a new husband. Hey, Grandpa. And they started their life in Ipswich, London. So that's my origin. That's kind of how this global thing was a part of my life. Through government, my grandmother made high rankings in the Navy. My grandfathers were Air Force. My mother was Navy. So technology was always around me. That was something that I was exposed to. I remember sharing a small story with my husband in the 80s when I wanted to talk to my great-grandparents in Florida. I would call my grandmother at the base and she would patch a call through. And I would speak to her on Sunday, and I would speak to my great-grandmother for like 4 to 6 hours every Sunday. So whether it was my easy bake oven class over the phone or an actual lesson in frying chicken. So, you know, it was an amazing childhood. And some of those things, I didn't understand what was happening, like why decisions were made or trajectories. But one thing came out of it. I had a village, and being able to see my great-great-grandparents and be a part of that rearing, it was a bigger calling for me. You know, my 18th birthday was spent with my great-grandfather saying, we're gonna go get your voter's license because it's a rite of passage for you. And so there were certain things that I think were instilled, and because of my rearing, that we're the folks who, like Mr. Rogers say, are you know, find the helpers. And so I think just, you know, innately, I became a helper.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, that's very remarkable. I don't think I ever interview anybody that actually has gone way back in time and really look at, you know, like their upgrowing, like their whole root, and you know. And so I guess I'm curious with that, like.
Sure.
What is it that triggered you to say, you know what, I want to know about my ancestry. I want to learn about that, because I don't think that many people think about that, right? So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, it was multiple things. Like I said, my great-great-grandmother, she was fit. You know, she passed in '85. I was 15, so I had her in my life, and my great-grandmother who raised me, and my great-grandparents. And they took us back to the family land. We, you know, visited 2 weeks in the summer. So my cousins and people that look like me, and, you know, even though I was the baby of these generations, I had exposure to my history. And it was important to me to understand that was just something that was reared. Know who you are. Know where you come from, because this world isn't as kind as we'd like it to be. And when those things come at you to try to tear that away from you, whether it's corporate or rearing kids or your personal life, you know, life comes at you. And that's your foundation, to know where you come from. Not all history of Black people in this country was heinous.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? That actually just struck another point here. Sometimes I think we tend to forget, you know, who we are and where we come from, right? And really, the thing to that is your identity, right? So how critical was that for you? Because I think that once, especially when, growing up, right, going to elementary, middle school, high school, a lot of times I found people that were lost in those years because they didn't know. They physically were here, yet they didn't know who they were deep down, or didn't know, and I didn't have an identity. And I talk about that because I think that that's one of the most critical things you can do, is to really understand what is your identity. How do you define yourself? What, you know, because that's gonna determine and dictate your next moves, and you're not gonna get lost. So for you, how was that? You know, knowing who you were, where you came from, knowing that identity, how did that help you, or not during your schools?
Oh, tremendously, because again, evolution is, you're always evolving anyway. Even though I had all these anchors, I would call them, you know, the village with my anchors, I still had to become Kenya, right? I was born with 5 names. So you grow up in a house where you hear all of your names and you answer to each one. And my pa would say, that's a different personality, right? Because that's how everyone in the family saw me. Either I was Kim or I was Kenya. My aunt would call me Monique. There was a battle on my last name, so it was West sometimes. It was McCarty. Now it's, then I became Brooks. Now I'm Jones, and Jones is our family name. So it's like when you begin to evolve in who that person is, there's a trajectory there. When I entered grade school, it was great because there were loving teachers. There was a village. They made sure, even though I was a little different, very rambunctious, they kind of let me sprout my wings and figure it out. I relocated from Florida to Atlanta, public schools, caring teachers, trying to figure out, they didn't diagnose ADHD back then, so they put a violin in my hand. Well, they figured out there was something there because I could play from ear. I didn't need sheet music. And so it was, it wasn't just how I became, it was all of the villagers and the anchors that saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And when you find your tribe, right, that's the result of that for any kid, any adult, is finding your tribe, whether it's an organization or corporate structure. I always say when I go into corporate entities, teach me your culture. In order for this partnership to work, I have to know your culture and be able to honor and respect that in order for this to be a relationship. Right? So that's a part of my rearing, because you can't just walk into a scene in a situation and expect a change when you don't understand the culture and you haven't figured out what the need truly is. And so that kind of geared me through my life. If I step into a scene in South Africa, there's a completely different need than Dominican Republic. Right? I mean, education is still the same. We're still looking for, people want their kids to be great. They want great communities. Everyone wants family. We can all agree to that. But there are different ways to get there, and honoring where someone is, meeting them where they are, I think is the key to any evolution of foundation, because I always had to, meet me where I was, right? I am humanly flawed.
Yeah, right.
Just by nature, right? So in my human flawedness, how do I take that and make it become something bigger than me?
You talked about village and tribe, and I think that's something that we sometimes tend to forget, or we tend to find the wrong village or the wrong tribe. How critical is that for just in general, whether it's in your personal life and your professional life, just in life in general, to have a particular tribe? Or how do you go about deciding what's good for or not good for you?
So, I always have been called, an inside joke. My grandmother would say, "Ooh, you have a spirit like Pocahontas." Like it's insight for me. It's being able to assess a situation and offering a new idea to the process. And if it's accepted, if it's welcome, then we may have something to grow upon. And if it's not, it's okay. Then you move on. And I've learned to move on quickly so I can get excited about what's next, because everyone won't receive you. Everyone has a free will in this world to say no.
Right. How do you do that? I think being able to say, what, I got to move away from this particular relationship, whether it's a girlfriend, boyfriend, friend, business partner, whatever the case may be, whatever relationship. How do you decide to move fast enough to get excited for the next one? Because that can be a little bit challenging from time to time.
Yeah, so you don't hold grudges. You allow people to be human, even if they offend you, right? I've always been taught that there are different tiers to relationships. There are people that come into your life for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And everyone isn't lifetime. And if you've done well to have relationships from childhood through high school, through university, through corporate America, you have 3 friends at the end of those, you know, at the end of that time, which I'm on the other side now, you've done well in your life. And so I really hold on to that, because there was a period where from high school to college, I couldn't count one friend that, you know, I still we were talking, and, you know, because my life just always moved really quickly, career-wise, family-wise. And I noticed that a lot of times those seasonal relationships were so much beneficial than I even accepted during that time period. So it wasn't easy. It's not easy to move on. I mean, if you care, you care, right? But learning to let something go, especially if you really love it, and if it doesn't come back, kind of wasn't for you, like you take on that philosophy. But there's work to do, and there's a big world out here, but it's an incredibly small world. And where I do know and understand, when a door closes, I promise another one is waiting. And so a lot of times if we sit in it too long, you're kind of, you know, prolonging the next trajectory. I believe in science.
Yeah.
I believe in the universe and the effects and how that works. So, you know, it's energy, and you have to find the energy that fits you. And if you pick up something that, you know, someone may not be so happy to see when you walk through the door, and that's okay. But move on quickly.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, and I think it comes down to like just being able to have a strong mental mind, and I know that takes time. I know for a fact that it takes time to practice, you know, really working on your mind, because that's going to be a critical aspect of not just something like this, but really in the business or in anything, right? I think it comes down to the foundation and the things that you have in between those two years is that mind, that mental being of that. Let me ask you this. Throughout your career or up to this point, what has been your biggest challenge that you had to overcome?
Oh, my biggest challenge I had to overcome.
Yeah, whether it's personal or professional, like I wanna know, like, what is that biggest challenge can you have to overcome that, you know, it's just something that it was very meaningful.
I mean, you know, when you ask that question, it's so open loaded for me, because you can think about trials in your life. You can think about things you've been through. You can think about, you know, the passing of, you know, losing a parent or, you know, grandparent. But I think challenge-wise, for me to overcome was understanding the need to build a foundation. Right? I have been fortunate in my life to achieve most of the things I set out to do. But what I didn't understand was when my grandfather was building a sidewalk or adding a porch to the home, he had already built a foundation for his home to be able to do that construct. And I was so busy in life, gotta get to the next, gotta win the next, gotta win this one. And I remember I had a mentor say to me, you gotta pick one thing. You know, you can't be great simultaneously at all things. You have to hone in on one thing. And so that allowed me to completely blow up my thinking. I called it stinking thinking, right? So I had a mentor that completely blew up what I thought was right in life. And then it made me extremely uncomfortable for maybe 3, 4, 5 year span in my life. Like, not comfortable. And he would say things like, I'm repeating myself to make sure you get it. And I would sit on a very hard bar stool hours in getting these lessons, because what I thought was right or wrong or life my thinking was warped to a point where I only had one pendulum. So I grew up in this one pendulum. So I tell you my story of my origins because that's my pendulum. But I hadn't blown up my life enough and set a foundation to be able to see from multiple pendulums. And that's the most challenging thing I had to overcome, was overcoming myself.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think that's a huge one, right? And I love how you talked about building a foundation. I think oftentimes we forget to create that, you know, in our own lives, especially for people. I have a lot of listeners that are entrepreneurs, and
Right.
sometimes their biggest challenge is that two challenges I believe is number one, they haven't built that foundation. And number two, their biggest obstacle is yourself, you know,
Yeah.
is you. And being able to recognize that and being able to create, or as you did kind of, you know, set back and even if you have to go to 4 to 5 years of being uncomfortable, you got to be able to take that to be able to move forward in that journey, right? And sometimes
Right.
that's the biggest challenge that we might have. In terms of that. Now you talked about education, right? And I have here in my notes that you develop an adaptive, personalized education learning platform, like math is a cloud-based, right? Or I like math like a cloud-based. Tell me more about that. What is that all about?
It's my foundation. Hey,
Ah, nice.
here it is, right?
Yeah.
So we are, I keep wanting to tie in the word beautiful every time I think about iLikeMath and Jones Software, because it came about, the origins of it came so, I won't say effortlessly, but it came so matter of fact and just, you know, like that back in the 60s where it was just a kind of a love pool, like a, you know, it was an act of love that turned into a business. It was an act of kindness that turned into a business. It was act of identifying and looking at social impact in a different light. And then it just turned into a business. Not an easy feat, but its origins was amazing. My husband was on Wall Street for 15 years, and he was making inroads into the community. And Northwest Indiana is one of those communities, like, yeah, the tribe is not so accepting
Yeah, yeah.
in the beginning. So you have to put the work in, right, to get accepted. And so he was doing it. And he started gravitating toward educators. And with that, we would come in and do mentor days. So he would bring in professionals like me, and I could name some other people that you would know. And it was an exciting moment through the James Jordan Foundation, Michael's mom. And it was ecstatic for us to be able to go into these communities and give back. And so, and then it had this trademark name, Gary, Indiana, home of the Jacksons, right? And we were mentors. We were coming into the classroom and, hey kids, would I go on field trips? And these kids were like, maybe. I mean, it was, you know, it wasn't, it wasn't as, it wasn't as welcoming as we thought, because we had these other things to deal with: behavior, home environment, and we hadn't tagged a name social impact to it, or social environment, or social learning, or SEL, all these things that, you know, really these sexy terms now that they're using in education. We didn't know that that's what we were tapping into. So we scratch paper fluency drills on paper, you know, and flashcards, and we found that, you know, the kids were excited. They were starting to behave and sit up straight and be excited for the days we were coming in. And so at the kitchen table version of Steve Wozniak, I would say my husband built this really awful program. I mean, it was a few, not just a few bugs, it was a lot of bugs, right?
Yeah.
But we would take it back in, and we noticed it was capturing it was like this love fest that was starting to happen with these kids that we hadn't, you know, been able to tap into. They were getting it. They were running to the smart boards. They were raising hands, and we partnered with Northwestern University. We said, well, let's do an efficacy study. I'm clinical, and so I want to see the growth in our program and what it's doing. And grades were skyrocketing. Grades were changing. Home environments were changing, and so we said, okay, we've got to turn this into a business. And our former mayor here in Chicago said, well, you've got to get over to 1871. And we were like, Chicago Fire? Like, 1871? He said, no, it's the program we started with Microsoft. You do good over there. So we did. We went through their process of being accepted into an incubator. Now, we didn't have any UX, UI, or building, VC, bootstrap, like all these terms. We were completely overwhelmed. I would come in every day and look at how do we turn this into a business. We know we have something. We know we have a great mentoring program, but the business part is where we were. So we did hire developers. We were running about 20 to 25,000 students in our program at the time. And this is around 2016, 2017. Summer, we were to go live on our first platform, and it failed.
Wow. Yeah, and I have here, so this is the, based on the foundation of ESSA, Every Student Succeed Act. And that's all students receive quality education combined with academic standards, innovative technology, equity and equality, successful college preparation, and a path toward a career and development. So with that, the question I guess I have is, definitely you're a huge advocate of education, right? What is your thoughts in terms of how our current education system is compared to what you're doing, right? How do you see that, and how critical is that for anyone either going through high school and even into college, right? Is education so critical or not?
Yeah, for me, I have always promoted education. I've always told my kids and anyone I mentor, education is the key to anything you do. You can fail 100 times, and as long as you have education, you will always be able to come back. That's just my promise. It's my promise because I have failed a lot. And it was my education. When the economy fell in 2008, I lost everything. I was able to come back because someone said, you have this education, you have this, we need that. And so we'll put you over here for the time being while you work your way back. Education is it. Well, now we're in the 21st century where if kids who especially are underserved, and I will say this out loud, brown and black children, if they are not somewhat technically computer science given, whether it's a technical degree or AA degree or some type of computer science, they will not be career ready in the next 5 to 10 years. Those jobs that we had when my grandparents were living, everything has a technology component. Everything leads, whether you're an engineer or a chemist or the grocery clerk or even the new janitorial service, everything will have an education component. And our kids are really good on the front end.
Yeah.
I mean, the thumbs are amazing. Like like, that's a new thing, right?
Right.
Well, but again, it's the back end that I'm concerned, and that's what we lobby for, is making sure that kids understand what happens behind the MacBook that I'm speaking to you on right now, because there's a component, and it's all zeros and ones, and it's all math. So that's why we focus on math, because if you're anywhere deficient in those, arenas, you have to get proficient. There's a Google exam that most people don't pass to be hireable at Google. Well, that exam is going to get harder. There's a PharmD exam that you have to pass to be licensed as a PharmD. That exam is going to get harder. So in all of our testing, whether it's Briggs-Myers or, there's always assessments done to become hireable. I sat in one. Well, I didn't take the exam, but my husband sat in one during our AT&T days. That was all day to get hired. So again, that's going to evolve as we become reliant on technology, reliant on AI, reliant on robotics, reliant on, how do we configure and deconfigure? Every car has a computer. It's only going to get stronger. So if we don't meet our kids full stop, third grade, K through 2, we have a curriculum. It's fun, it's cute. But full stop, the real curriculum starts at third grade. And you have to incorporate that with what they're already doing daily. So I think that education of yesterday is really yesterday. This new normal, this hybrid learning, this e-learning environment. And it's great. Everyone has some type of platform or component, but still it's going to be the curriculum and the engagement that get our kids from 0 to proficient.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that too right now. As of the recording of this year, we're going through this pandemic, right? COVID-19, right. And when we kind of enter into this pandemic, you saw a lot of probably primarily parents that couldn't really log in or get into Zooms or classroom webinars or whatever that might be.
Correct.
They were technologically challenged with that. And then even sometimes, even some kids, like, they didn't even know, like, they know the game's really good, but they didn't know the other component, right? And so I do believe that you're right. I mean, this is something that we got to be able to embrace. This is something that at the end of the day, we have to understand how it works, because it is not here to live, it's here to stay. And so we have to be able to adjust to that. Is your programs or the things you have, is that at a private level, a public level? How does that get distributed, or do people come just to you specifically for that? How does that work?
Well, our distribution, we have relaunched our second platform October 2019. So it is a full standard compliant. We didn't spare any ride. We failed first, but we won't fail again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am working right now. I'm in a Google Y Combinator class right now, and we'll be launching our first virtual classroom coming up in the next 4 weeks. So we have, we pulled out all the stops. We cashed in everything for this second round, this second platform, because we cannot fail. And now we have to go to more virtual field trips and classrooms. And so the component of how we sell to post-secondary, K through 12, secondary education, further education, and we're moving into the higher ed market because we have some adult learners who didn't get it before, and now they have to have it, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't want to leave anyone off the table, what we call underserved or underrepresented, but we do know the challenges. And so we're extremely understanding that, hey, you need broadband first, you need a device first in order to use our product, right? In order to get to us, you need those things. So we're extremely sensitive to that. And so we're kind of a company that's continuously developing. We're continuously meeting the teacher and the student where they are. We're continuously partnering with the Googles and the Apples and the IBMs of the world, because they do have the technology. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Our government has a lot of already compliant work that they've done, and we're partnering with to do research and efficacy studies. So the goal is not to scale to millions of students, onboarded. The goal is to reach one as we do, to reach that one, to see them through college or see them through high school, see them through our internship program. The goal is for that kid to be able to stand and be able to take care of himself in this new normal. So we're very hands-on approach of kids that go into our program. So we've just signed on to a new partnership where we'll actually be teaching computer science this year. So we're now going into the classroom.
Wow,
I'm a
that's
staff
amazing.
badge, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow, that's awesome.
Right. So we've joined a North Dakota school, Central Cass High School, and we will be their computer science teachers as a company this year. And it's a new program. It's sponsored in full partnership with Microsoft. And we want to scale that not only to, the Microsoft schools, but in partnering with some of our own schools. But again, we're going to take this year in school to make it work.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to start saying, oh, this is a great program. And we graduated 30 kids. And really, I had 60 kids in the class, but only 20 logged on, right? So the success is, my goal is that 20 that didn't log on.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. So if people wanted to connect with you guys, where can they find you?
Well, we're right here in beautiful Chicago. We are headquartered at the beautiful Merchandise Mart. I'm pointing at it. Like you can really see it.
Right, yeah.
So, and our website is, we're www.j-soft, and you can reach us on any social media handle, whether it's Twitter, we're at JSoft, we're Instagram, JSoft. Kenya Global is my personal Instagram and Twitter feed, and Facebook, we're at Jones Software Corporation. So yeah, please call, volunteer. We're always looking for new hires. I will say this as a plug, we've just kind of repositioned our old, and so we're kind of shifting in some new talent in this new normal that we're in. So yeah, please reach out, give us a call, and we'd be happy to hear from you.
Awesome. All right, good. That's good. So I have a couple more questions for you. Is there anything that you do on a day-to-day basis to keep you on a positive state of mind? Do you have any habits or rituals or things you do every day?
Yes.
Let's hear them.
I don't know if I can do any more shout outs, but yeah. So every day is just me in my spiritual place. Every morning, I try to give that time, at least an hour, half hour of just me and my spirit, my being, my soul. Like it has to be a moment where it's just, me and me and Mother Earth, me and whom I serve, right? Me and the ancestors, because I want them to be proud. I don't want to do. The goal is what I'm doing in my life right now. I don't know. I don't think I can afford missteps, and so I'm always deeply spiritually minded of what I get up to do, and the fact that I've been allowed to wake up this morning and this day to start another day. And so right now my energy is extremely heavy. This year and the deaths, it does take a toll. When I learned that, Black Panther was sick all this time and then he passed, Chadwick, that was that moment I had to stop and take account for the why. Right? Why am I surviving? And so many people that I know and don't are not here, then there's bigger purpose. And if I'm not on the right pathway, let me be quiet until I get on the right pathway. So there's a deeply spiritual side in this family. In this company, we don't think we are alone. We don't think we do it alone. And so everything we do is if you're on purpose, we're winning, even with the failures and the calamity that may come with it. There's a quiet space that we all find, and it works.
I love that. I really love that. And I can relate to that because I always say that you know, if you were able to wake up today, you're listening to this recording, you're watching us on YouTube, you're listening to us in your favorite podcast platform, there's a reason for that, right? And I always tell people that if you're still here, no matter how bad it was yesterday, you're still here today, God or universe or whoever you believe in is not done with you. There's a bigger purpose, and you don't know what that purpose is. You got to be able to kind of, you know, go in there and start looking at that purpose, because there's something for you to do. There's something for you to accomplish. Les Brown talks about this, and he says that, you know, we are here today and we are gone tomorrow. And we just don't know. And going back to this thing with Black Panther and even some other people, Kobe Bryant recently, you know, all these different people that have gone, you know, it was very unexpected. And one thing that I was reading too, which is another thing that I believe people should really take into account, is with Black Panther, he was being criticized for pictures. They're like, oh, he's losing weight, and they were judging him, and they were making all these things without even realizing that he was battling a fight, a life-threatening fight. Which brings me to my second point, is that we have to be humble, and we have to appreciate the people that we have. We don't know what they're going through. We just don't know. Right. And so we shouldn't be so easily to judge. So I can relate to that, and I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Love and light, right?
Yeah.
You know, and if I can't bring love and light into your life, then I'm not a candidate for you. Because that's all I had to give.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, I love that. Last thing I have for you is being a little bit broad. Nevertheless, if somebody's going through some sort of challenge, whatever that might be, what would be your best advice that they can start doing today to start overcoming that challenge?
You know, overcoming is a mindset. So I always tell people that, you know, whether it's my kids or, you know, you have to start with you, right? Challenges will never stop coming. You know, it's really how you approach it. It's how you look at that thing and decide how much of it are you going to allow to consume you, how hurt you're going to allow yourself to be. And none of those things fit with love and light. None of those hurt, anger, pain, misery, none of that fits. But again, it's understanding too, being okay to say, I'm hurting today. You know, I don't feel like myself. Like, you know, own the thing. You know, own it. Like, accept it for what it is. It didn't work. You know, you didn't get the job. You know, you didn't get into that school, and that's okay, right? Just say it out loud. It's okay. You won't achieve at everything. There may be a professor who see you in a different light, and I've had professors tell me, I'm going to fail you. Yeah, because there was something about me that our energies didn't fit, you know, and that's okay. Because I was clear to say, no, you're not. Right. You know, you won't just fail me. But again, it's a mindset of how you just look at the entire approach of what that thing is. What is it you're trying to overcome? Is it something you really are overcoming, or is it something you haven't let it go? And the universe is saying it's time to let go. Yeah. You know, I'm not going to fix this until you let it go. We're not going to move to the next level because, again, there's a process, right? And I'll end with this. So my godfather used to say, in every level you get to in life, you have to go back to zero. What? Yeah, you have to go back to zero. What do you mean? He says, well, count from 1 to 100, right? And so you're at 10 and then 20 and 30. He said, now figure out where you sit on that scale. And so I would say years ago, maybe 5 years ago, maybe I'm at 70. He said, okay, 70, I'll take that. He says, well, now we're going through 70 and 71, 72 to you're making it to 80, right? And I said, yeah, I'm at 80. I'm winning. He said, yeah, but you have to go back to zero when you get to 80. Right?
Yeah.
When you make it to 90, you have to go back to 0. So there's a process that we cannot shine from in life. That's why you go from 0 to 10 and you age, because there's a process in aging, and there's your evolution, and that's how you learn. So you won't have it all together at 20.
Yeah.
You won't have it. I mean, 30, you may start figuring it out, like, yeah, I'm gonna stop doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm 40, and I always say men are most mature at 50, right?
Yeah.
So again, overcoming is not really overcoming the thing, because the thing is going to continue. Life is full of things. Life is full of calamity. It's full of tyranny.
Yeah.
Right? But this too shall pass. And so you've got to get excited about the light that comes on the other side of the storm. The storm will pass. Yeah, there's going to be some destruction, and we may have some losses, but we get through it. And the way you do that, and I'll say that full circle, is your tribe. I am nothing without my tribe, my family, the people that I know love me when I don't look so well.
Yeah.
All right. I don't say all the right things. You know, it's just, I know they love me when they call and say, hey, can you make me that paella thing that you make? I just want to come by and sit with you.
Yeah.
Those are the things that matter. These other things, their accomplishments, and they're great, and they'll sit well in your Wikipedia page, but that shouldn't be your focus. It's the people that love you the most, who you see every day or talk to from afar.
Yeah. Boom, there you have it. Man, there were some really great golden nuggets at the end. I love that. Kenya, thank you so much for being here and spending some time with us at the show.
My pleasure, Cesar. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
I wish you great things.
Yeah, definitely. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure you check us out on your favorite podcast platform. Please subscribe. Leave us a comment in this recording here. Like, share. Please do that. And you can also find us on YouTube. I'll see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything. Bye.
Hi, I'm CesarRespino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.